Hey guys, happy Monday. Jo here at SportsGrid. It's time for Puck with Jo now. Hopefully you caught those the one early video, Puckett Cup of Jo. In that one, we're just going to go over these games. So a couple of those are kicking off right away. We do have the Anaheim Ducks and the Buffalo Sabres in action right now. Now, in this one, I did take the Ducks team total under 2.5. They scored a goal, but we did take that over 1.5 in that first period. So that has came in and cashed nicely as these teams are tied with 3 minutes left in the first period, 1-1 apiece. Now, I did think the Buffalo Sabres would be the team to score both of those goals in that first period. So we need one more goal out of them in the next 3 minutes. Looking at live lines, we're still almost a $2 favorite here with the Sabres. They're minus 194 and plus 150 for the Anaheim Ducks. That total is sitting at 6.5, and you're laying minus 184 to the over. Can't hit it there. We are seeing the lines lock up. So fingers crossed here. The Buffalo Sabres were able to score. I'm not seeing that score changing, but that total has jumped to 7.5 now, minus 113 to the over. Do I expect it to go over 7.5? Man, that's a big question mark. This Anaheim Ducks team does struggle to score. I'd be looking at the under 7.5 if you don't have any action yet in this game. The under 7.5 at minus 113 is where I would go. So let's get this money today, you guys. I appreciate you guys being here with me on a Monday, nice and early. Happy President's Day to everyone down in the States, and happy Family Day to those of you watching up here in Canada. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. If you're watching in Canada, not in Alberta, is it Family Day where you're at? Because I know Alberta celebrates Family Day. I don't know if any other provinces do. So it's a dangerous bet. I know the under 7.5. It is completely dangerous. I agree. So let's go, you guys. Let's make some freaking money out there. I'm super excited for today's slate. Let's look at the games kicking off right away. So we got a couple minutes. If you didn't catch the Puckett Cup of Jo, the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the St. Louis Blues. Now, this is a rematch of what we just saw in Toronto on the 13th. So not that long ago. When we saw that game, Toronto was able to win it 4-1. They're minus 156 rolling in here on the road, in the St. Louis Blues at plus 130. Now, the total is 6.5, minus 106 to the under, and minus 114 to the over. Looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs here, we know Austin Matthews has been absolutely lights out. 6 hat tricks on the season, 13 career hat tricks. He is on those leaderboards. He's tied Wayne Gretzky, and I can't remember which season it was that Wayne Gretzky was able to get those 6. He did have 10 in the season prior, I believe 83, 84 years with Wayne Gretzky. There's a couple other huge names on that list as well. So Austin Matthews to continue to roll hot here. I love him for that anytime goal. Now it's juicy at minus 125. If you do think he can get 2 goals on the St. Louis Blues today, I'm cautious with it because these two teams actually trade back win and losses. It really does seem. So I think the value's on St. Louis, but it is Austin Matthews who I have more faith in this game than anyone. So that's my favorite bet. Austin Matthews, anytime goal minus 125. If you think he's going to get 2 goals, that's plus 470. Part of me wants to sprinkle a little bit on that. Haven't got to the window yet. And then if you think he's going to get 2 goals, you got to hope he gets a hat trick because that's plus 2,400. So we could see it here. The problem is this is the first game of a road trip. Looking at the road trip here for the Toronto Maple Leafs, we know they play up and down 2 competitions. So they have the St. Louis Blues today. Their next game is the Arizona Coyotes. In that one, we could see the Coyotes really keep it tight because then you look at the next 2 games on deck for the Toronto Maple Leafs after the Coyotes, and it's the Vegas Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche. So I would think if Austin Matthews is going to have an explosive game, like highly explosive hat trick sort of game, I'm looking at Colorado there. Colorado's been struggling on the defensive side of the puck and goaltending wise, and we've seen some really high scoring games between those 2 clubs. So I do think the hat trick probably comes versus the Avs rather than a weaker opponent here in the St. Louis Blues that they just beat 4-1. And I do think with how they've been trading back wins and losses, this is one where with Jordan Binnington in goal tonight, we could see a really strong performance out of the St. Louis Blues at home. St. Louis at home is 16-10 and 1 on the season. So they've been strong at home. They're also 16-11 on that puck line. No value on the puck line though today. LA Kings heating up. Mike, my friend Mike Gallo, thanks for joining us. Yeah, your Kings are playing fantastic. Love their win over the Bruins, winning last 3 now. So it is good to see the Kings on a roll. Let's make this money today. So trying to get hockey totals, the Red Wings and the Kraken. Yeah, we'll talk about the Red Wings and the Kraken in just a second here. Let's get to that other game that is kicking off right away. We have the Dallas Stars taking on the Boston Bruins. Now, I really do think once the Boston Bruins get out on the road for their next game, we'll start to see this team really getting back right. It's a struggle right now at home. They've lost their last 4, and the way that they lost to the LA Kings never gave up in that game. And the Bruins ended up losing in OT. Now, people say, well, it wasn't impressive out of the Kings. Yeah, it was, because once Boston gets a lead, we know how hard this team is to be able to get a win over them, especially at home. But they have lost their last 4. They're struggling out there. The road trip is on deck. So on Wednesday, they travel to Edmonton to take on the Edmonton Oilers. They then have the Calgary Flames and the Kraken and the Canucks in between the Flames and the Kraken. So they've got the Pacific road trip on deck. And we look at the Dallas Stars, they're rolling in here off that loss to the Edmonton Oilers. They lost in overtime 4-3 as well. So both teams coming off those overtime games. If you're looking for, trends here with teams off of overtime, really isn't strong ones here for either of these teams. And they were both on Saturday. So I'm not looking for those tired legs to really come out of either of these teams with it being Monday today. I do think with what we've seen out of both of these teams, how strong these defenses can be, we're going to have a defensive lockdown in this game. The total is 5.5. And I know it's scary to take the under 5.5. We're getting that at plus 100. I think 3-2 style game, unless Boston completely gets destroyed by the Dallas Stars today. And I don't know if that happens because the Boston Bruins actually dominate this matchup with the Stars. But I can't lay minus 146 on a Boston team that's just not playing consistent out there on the ice right now. I want to back Boston once they get out on the road. So while I do think Boston at home with how they played versus Dallas is the right way to go, at minus 146, there's no way my money would be there. If Boston, was minus 110 even, maybe I'd look at them then, but I can't look at them at this price. The Dallas Stars, this is game 1 of a 4-game road trip for them. So it's gonna be interesting. 8 of the last 10 meetings have gone under that total. We got talent on both sides of the puck. And one thing that has been consistent for the Boston Bruins while they have been losing these games is Pastrnak has been absolutely phenomenal out there. So Pastrnak for 2+ points today is coming in at plus 112. You can look at him for the anytime goal as well. Fando has it locked right now, so I can't give you a number on that. But you look at Pastrnak, he's been able to just dominate offensively out here for the Boston Bruins. So if anyone's going to find the back of Jake Ottinger's net, you can rely on Pastrnak. But I think the points is a better way to go especially when I'm looking at a lower scoring game. I love looking at the points rather than those anytime goals because the goals are hard to come by in a game like this. I would love to see the Quebec team come back. We will see where they expand to. It's going to be really interesting. That is for sure. The Arizona Coyotes, there's so many question marks about where they are going to land. Bring them up to Canada. We need another team up here. So that would be quite interesting. It should be, Kev. It really should be the bounce back for the Boston Bruins. They absolutely need it. But again, my money can't go there on them. I really thought that game versus the Kraken that they lost, I believe it was a 4-1. I thought that was going to be their bounce back after losing those couple. And then I went against them because the Kings had been rolling hot and I just couldn't back them with how they're looking. I think a road trip is absolutely needed for this team. Yeah, I'm with you, Raven. The Stars, you probably are on the right side. It's just the Stars have struggled. So I don't want to take a side. I just want to take the under. Boston is a good team, and I'm not saying they're not. I do think this team can absolutely do wonders out there. Okay, let's look at the next game on deck. So that first period, we did finish the Sabres and the Ducks 1-1. The total has now dropped back down to 6.5. So hopefully you jumped on the under 7.5 at minus 113. We're going into the second period. So we got the over 1.5 in the first period, but we weren't able to get that puck line cover for the Buffalo Sabres in that first period. I do have Tage Thompson to get an anytime goal, so I'm going to have to look if he was able to get it. The next game on deck, we have the Vancouver Canucks and the Minnesota Wild. This one kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, Demko expected here for the Vancouver Canucks, and Gustafsson for the Minnesota Wild. Now, the Minnesota Wild are off that loss to the Buffalo Sabres. It was an OT loss, 3-2. The Wild really struggle against the Sabres, and I'm not sure why. It's just one of those teams that they have a hard time beating. And when we look at the Vancouver Canucks, they're off that loss to the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets actually scoring 4 goals in that game. It was a 4-2 win for them over Vancouver. And I didn't expect that because the Winnipeg Jets have been struggling to score out there. And I expected more out of Vancouver defensively in that one. Now, this team is sitting first in the Pacific, and we have the Minnesota Wild sitting 6th in the Central. They did win the last matchup, though, the Wild in a super low 2-1 game. When we look at the odds here, the Vancouver Canucks rolling in at -122 on FanDuel, plus 102 here for the Minnesota Wild, and total of 6.5. Now, the 6.5 highly juiced to that under at -130. If you want to take it over, which I really don't recommend the over, it is coming in at plus 106. So you are getting the plus money there. What I'm going to look at in this one is I really do think the Minnesota Wild are probably the right side to get the win here at home. It's just there's something about Vancouver in this matchup I'm just not loving. I think the Wild can win it, and they're a slight home dog in this one. When we look at these teams and the home ice advantage, the Minnesota Wild have won the last 5 versus Vancouver on their own home ice. But if we look at that first period with Minnesota off of overtime, there's a nice trend if you want to back the Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks in the first period on the puck line, laying that half of goals, coming in at plus 174. When you look at the Minnesota Wild off of overtime, they've lost their last 5 first periods off of overtime. So you could look at Vancouver here, puck line first period. You know, Vancouver off that loss, they're going to come out really strong offensively. So I absolutely could see it hitting the back of Gustafsson's net in that first period and being up 1-0. I do think this is a lower scoring game, though. So I would hit the under 6.5 at -130. Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting matchup between these two. Taking the Canucks on the money line full game. You guys got Vancouver. Yeah. I don't blame you. Atlanta, bring back the Atlanta Thrashers. That would be interesting, that is for sure. Okay, let's look at the next game here. You guys, 10 games on deck today. The Red Wings versus the Seattle Kraken. This one kicks off at 3:30 Eastern. So odds right now on FanDuel, as that Toronto Maple Leafs and Boston Bruins game, the puck has dropped on. The Red Wings, they're the dog on the road at plus 112. With the Seattle Kraken at -134, total 6.5. Juice to that under at -128, and plus 104 to the over in this one. I tell you, I could see this one going over the total because of how strong the offense has been for the Detroit Red Wings. Now, they won their last game versus the Calgary Flames 5-0. They were able to get the shutout. Alex Leon expected in goal. He is strong. I really like what we've seen out of him. But the Kraken answering back with Joey Daccord, and Joey Daccord we know has been so hot. So I understand why the books are putting this one to the under with the juice, but I do think the possibility of going to overtime is huge here between these two teams. When we look at the last 2 matchups between them, they have gone to OT. It's been a 5-4 win for the Seattle Kraken in overtime in those last 2 matchups. And when we look at these teams in Detroit, all of the games in Detroit, so they've only played, I believe, 5. Yeah, 5 meetings altogether. 3 of them in Detroit. All 3 have gone to overtime. Now, this one is in Seattle. We haven't seen a game go to OT in Seattle, but these teams play each other extremely tight. I do think the plus 340 on overtime is in play. And because I think overtime is a possibility, I have to take this over because the only way I can see it going to overtime is a 3-3 score, putting us over that 6.5. So that's where I'm going. I also think the values on the Red Wings, the possibility of them rolling into Seattle and being able to get the win. The Kraken are off that big win over the Boston Bruins. Yeah, the Boston Bruins, a 4-1 win. They're going to be rolling in with some momentum, but I do think the Red Wings' ability to get this win is there. Okay, next game on deck. If I can just change the tab here for that. We've got the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the San Jose Sharks. Now, Vegas, a huge favorite here on the road at minus 275, plus 220 for the Sharks. Looking at the puck lines, because you're going to have to look at the puck lines unless you like the Sharks straight up to get the win. The Sharks plus the 1.5 is minus 115, and the Vancouver Canucks laying the 1.5 is minus 104. Now we have a total of 5.5, minus 124 to the over, and minus or plus 102 to the under in this one. I do think there's a couple ways to look at this game. It depends on what you think Vegas is going to do in this one. This is their first night of a back-to-back. They have the Predators on deck tomorrow. They lost their last two. That last game to the Canes, they lost 3-1. You're going to think that they're going to come out just absolutely on fire. But how much effort are they going to put into this game in that third period if they're up a couple goals? So I am worried about the backdoor puck line cover here for the San Jose Sharks. I do think Vegas wins, but I can't take them here on the puck line. The Sharks can be sneaky, and they covered the puck line. I believe it's their last 5 games. So this team has been solid on that puck line. They're sitting 13-12 at home on the puck line, 26-28 overall on the season. 8th in the Pacific and 2nd in the Pacific here for the Vegas Golden Knights. So it is a divisional matchup, and I do think Vegas can win it. I just don't love that cover. So the couple things I'm going to look at. The Sharks on the puck line, plus 1.5. I lean towards more than anything. I do think you could look at these totals here. Aiden Hill is expected tonight for Vegas and Blackwood for the San Jose Sharks. Blackwood, we know, can let in the beach balls, you guys. He's not too solid out there. So probably the safest bet is looking at the Vegas Golden Knights over 3.5. That's coming in at minus 118. If you want to take a chance on the Sharks to get those 3 goals, because I do think 4-3 gives us the over. 4-3 gives us the over on the Vegas Golden Knights team total minus 118. And then 4-3 gives us the over on the Sharks team total. Now, the over on the Sharks team total is where you're going to get all your value today. The over 2.5 goals is coming in at plus 128. So I like all of those. Take what you're willing to take here, but the Vegas Golden Knights won the last matchup. It was 5-4. So we did nicely see the Sharks be able to get those goals in this matchup. And I do think they're still going to get those goals today. So I like it. They don't play after today till Saturday when they face the Predators, but Vegas has the Predators on deck tomorrow. I just don't like situations like that where they have a harder team on deck the next day. So that's where I'm going to go. You got Vegas on that puck line. I don't blame you. Vegas is the much better team. Yeah, that exact score. I'm sure you're talking about the Red Wings. Are you talking about that one with the Seattle Kraken? Or are you talking this game here, 5-4 again with Vegas? Life is good. Thank you for joining me here today. We're going to make some freaking money out there on the ice. McCann, anytime goal scoring for the Seattle Kraken. I like it. I like where you're going with that. So let's get on to the next game, you guys. We are still scoreless between the Leafs and the St. Louis Blues there. Okay, we're at the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers taking on the Arizona Coyotes. The Oilers have turned away from their strong defensive games, and I'm disappointed to see this. Well, as a Calgary fan, not really, but as a fan of hockey, I'm disappointed to see what Edmonton has done because they went on that huge streak, able to really lock down, hold their opponents, limit their ability to get those shots. Also, Skinner was on fire, and then they kind of have fallen off that style of play, and they're relying on their offense again. So kind of waves with Edmonton here. They're almost a $3 favorite over the Arizona Coyotes. I can't get behind that. They're minus 280 here on the money line on FanDuel. Arizona Coyotes are plus 125. Total of 6.5 at minus 130 to the over. Sign me up to that over all day because I do think the Coyotes will do their share of work in this. Now, the Coyotes have a goalie making his starting debut. He did come into net for one game though, and he stopped all 4 shots in that one with 13 minutes left. So he's going to get the support. Vilieta, I believe is how you say his name. I probably absolutely butchered it. His first name's Maz. So Skinner on the other side, I do think because the Arizona Coyotes can be strong offensively at points. They got a 2.87 goals per game average and a power play that's actually clicking at 21.2. I do think we will see the lack of defense again out of the Edmonton Oilers. I just can't trust them still on the defensive side, and I can't trust Skinner in net. You got Clayton Keller. He was held off the scoreboard. And I know this is the second night of the back-to-back. It gives me even more faith in this one going over because we know how strong Edmonton is offensively. But I do think Clayton Keller, it's what, 5 games now? He hasn't scored a goal. You got to look at him for the anytime goal tonight. He's coming in at, actually, I don't have odds in front of me. I believe it was plus 250. And Logan Cooley, you got to look at Logan Cooley, but he was able to get the goal yesterday. But looking here, Edmonton has won the last 6 meetings. They've covered the puck line in the last 2 meetings, the Arizona Coyotes. So they have been able to keep it tight. You can look at their team total in this one, and I do like it, over 2.5. That's coming in at minus 116. I think there's a couple other ways to bet it if you don't want to rely on the Arizona Coyotes and just don't want to touch it. And I don't blame you. It's really hard to look at the Coyotes to keep it tight here versus Edmonton, who is so strong. They come in off of that win over the Dallas Stars on Saturday. So they've had a day off in between. Corey Perry, the anytime goal, I like. He's coming in at plus 280 here. I love that first period over 1.5. It's too juicy though, minus 152. If you're going to have some faith in the Arizona Coyotes, you can take both teams to score in the first period. That's coming in at plus 152. So you're getting the value there. I also think that goal in the first 5 minutes, Edmonton, I really could see scoring right out of the gate in this one, trying to prove a point here. They're sitting 3rd in the Pacific, and this team can absolutely bring it. It's one of those teams that likes to get up hard and fast. So looking at Edmonton on the puck line, I do not blame you at all. It's a strong way to go. Ken, hi there. Okay, so that's where I'm going. I'm going to take the goal in the first 5 minutes. The goal in the first 5 minutes. Just let me look up the odds on that one again. Oh, we do have goalie props up now. Skinner, his number is 24.5. We still don't have Blackwood's number. Blackwood can be a sieve out there. Or sorry, it's not. Blackwood's in for the Sharks. It's Viliata. We don't have a number on him. So the goal in the first 5 minutes, you guys, is coming in at plus 156. So you can look at the goal in the first 5 minutes. You can look at the over 1.5, but you're going to have to parlay. It's too juicy. But you could look at the over 1.5 in the first period and Edmonton to win and combine that together. I don't hate that either. Okay, let's look at the next game here. Also cautious with Edmonton. Why I don't love them puck line for the full game. They're off a hard win in OT, and guess who they have on Wednesday? They're the Boston Bruins. Scheduling spots. I'm huge about scheduling spots, you guys. Let's look at the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the Jets have struggled to score on the season, but they're coming off that nice win over Vancouver. We're looking at the Calgary Flames, who are coming off a shutout loss to the Detroit Red Wings on Saturday. They allowed 5 goals, and they didn't find the back of the net once in that one. Looking at current odds on FanDuel, Calgary at plus 106, minus 128 here for the Winnipeg Jets. Total of 5.5, minus 104 to the over and minus 118 to the under. I'm going to stay off the total in this one just because I could see Calgary answering back, but I just don't know how many goals the Winnipeg Jets are going to score. I could see this being a 2-0, a 2-1, a 3-2 style game, or a 4-3 style game. So I'm completely staying off that total, you guys. I just can't get there with it. Looking at the last matchup between these two teams, Calgary did win 5-3. Jacob Markstrom was in goal, and he had an absolutely fantastic game in that one. He saved 34 shots on net. Now, I was trying to look at Markstrom's goalie prop before we came on, and it wasn't up, and we're still not getting a line here for Markstrom, but I would look for Jacob Markstrom to go over this number. I think here, if Calgary is able to win, Jacob Markstrom has to come out absolutely on fire in this one. Calgary should bounce back in this, and I do look at the Winnipeg Jets in this scheduling spot, and I don't love it for them. They won that last game over Vancouver 4-2. This isn't a team that has been generating a lot of goals either. First night of a back-to-back, they have the Wild on deck at home tomorrow. Now, that matchup tomorrow is a central divisional matchup. So we've got the Winnipeg Jets sitting third in the Central, and we have the Minnesota Wild sitting sixth. So I do think this could be a tiny bit of a look ahead. I think if Calgary is able to get up in this one, we won't see the most of the effort out of the Winnipeg Jets in that last third period because they know they've got to return home and take on the Wild tomorrow. So while they want and need every point they can get, I could see this being a letdown spot just because of the scheduling spot here. And especially with Calgary off that embarrassing loss on their own home ice, I think they come out with a vengeance in this. So looking at player props for the Calgary Flames, Kadri has been so strong as of late, Kuzmenko as well, and Coleman. Those would be the players I'd be looking at for those anytime goals or the points on the board. Now, if you want to look at the Winnipeg Jets here, Kyle Connor, we know how strong he is, and Mark Scheifele. I would look at both of them for their points tonight. Okay, you guys, we have two more games to go over. I'm just going to check the score. Toronto and the St. Louis Blues still scoreless in that first period. That total has dropped to 5.5. We know the ability of the Toronto Maple Leafs to put up those goals at any given time. So the over 5.5 is plus 100. I don't hate that live look there. We're still seeing Toronto as the favorite at minus 156 and plus 122 for the St. Louis Blues. Like I said, I do think there's value on the St. Louis Blues in this game. If you want to take them, though, I would think Toronto would score first in this game. So I would wait to see here. If Toronto scores first, I would jump in on the St. Louis Blues, either plus the 1.5 or at plus 122. I know Toronto just did beat them 4-1 on the 13th, but I think there's value on the St. Louis Blues with how these teams have traded back wins. We have seen the Boston Bruins. If you guys are on the Boston Bruins, it's a happy moment for you right now. The Bruins are up 1-0 over the Dallas Stars. Now that total is still sitting at 6.5, minus 128 to the under. 12 minutes left in that game. If you like the Dallas Stars to come back, which you guys, we've seen these teams come back on the Boston Bruins, especially the Kings team was able to. They were down, 3 goals at one point? It feels like 3. Maybe it was just 2. But the Dallas Stars live line here is plus 230. So if you want to hedge, if you had the Boston Bruins originally grabbing that plus 230, you're going to get value there even with the hedge. So let's look at these last 2 games on deck. 95% of the public is on the St. Louis Blues. Well, that is not good to hear. I hate when the public is all over them. It's okay. I would fade the Flames too in certain situations. I can't fade them tonight, but I can see it. 6-3 win for the Edmonton Oilers. They could win it big for sure. Okay, let's look at the Chicago Blackhawks taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. 2 teams that are just trending in the exact opposite direction. I know the Blackhawks were able to get the win in that last game versus the Ottawa Senators, but the Senators have been a struggling team. Connor Bedard back in this lineup is so impactful for the Chicago Blackhawks, but you're looking here at the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, this is their first game home off a 3-game road trip. They went 2-1 on that road trip. Their defense is so sound. I just don't know how the Chicago Blackhawks are going to score. And when we look at the last 2 meetings between these 2 teams, the Carolina Hurricanes shut them out in the last 2. So the Chicago Blackhawks team total, it is terrifying to take. Under 1.5. Under 1.5 is plus 136. I have to take it. I just don't see them scoring on Spencer Martin and the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, the goaltending issues are there for Carolina until Frederik Andersen gets healthy. I don't 100% trust goaltending. I don't 100% trust Spencer Martin. But you look at the Chicago Blackhawks, I don't trust this team to score at all. If this was another team that had more stronger ability to score, I wouldn't be taking an under 1.5. But then you look at the Carolina Hurricanes defense, and they're the best defense at limiting those shots on goal. They're holding opponents to 25.3 shots on goal. Their kill is outstanding at 84.9%. The power play is basically non-existent here for Chicago as well at 12.2. And Carolina's ability to score on their power play is outstanding at 27.7%. So Carolina, even though they're coming home off a road trip, I do think are the right side. I love the Blackhawks team total under 1.5 because you guys know I'm always looking for plus money. I don't like to lay a lot of juice. So when we look at the lines here, Carolina's minus 385. We've got plus 300 for the Chicago Blackhawks, total of 5.5, plus 104 to the under, minus 128 to the over. I would not look at the total independently. Sorry, altogether, I'm looking at the total independently for the Chicago Blackhawks because Carolina could come up and put 10 goals on Chicago in this one. It's not out of the realm, or they could score 3 and just lock down, and then we stay under that total. So I'm not touching full game, just Chicago's team total. If you want to look at Carolina to win it on that puck line, laying 1.5 is -160. Just not enough value there for me. So I'm not going to touch it. Just give me the under 1.5 goals for the Blackhawks and hold your breath that there's no more goals in that one. It's kind of scary taking under 1.5, especially if Chicago comes out and scores right away. You guys know I'm going to be panicking tonight. The Ottawa Senators taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa off an embarrassing loss. Like, we're talking absolutely devastating, embarrassing loss. I was writing Tampa versus the Florida Panthers. Battle of the Atlantic out there. I really did think we'd get so much more out of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Stamkos thought it too. If you heard him afterwards talking about just how embarrassing it is for a team to lose 9-2, then you completely understand why I'm taking Stamkos today for the anytime goal. I think he has a bounce back game, and I think the Tampa Bay Lightning have a bounce back game here as well. And I think it's straight out of the gate, you guys. We know how strong this team can be in that first period, and I am looking for them to really take it out on the Ottawa Senators. Now, the Sens are on their first night of a back-to-back as well. So something to look at, because guess who they take on tomorrow? We'll see the Kachuk brothers back at it. And I don't know if you remember the last time the Ottawa Senators and the Florida Panthers played. That was when everyone basically got kicked off the ice for a penalty. It was just absolutely insane. Every single person out there, it felt like, was in that penalty box. These two teams are going to be fiery and scrappy tomorrow. What game? I know Ottawa needs every win, but they're sitting 8th in the Atlantic. I really did think this team would do a lot better this year. They have so much talent on their roster, but they're just not able to convert it. So Forsberg is in net for them tonight. Andrei Vasilevskiy for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, the Lightning won the last one 6-4. I am taking this one over that total because I do think we've got firework goals in this one, but that over 6.5 at -150, I would fire it up or wait the first couple of minutes and hope we get no goals, but I think those goals are coming right away. So I think, yeah, I wouldn't. If we somehow don't get that goal in the first 5 minutes, which I think we can get, that's coming in at +146, then we're going to get less juice on that over 6.5. But I think once that first goal is scored, these two teams just go back and forth. So taking the Lightning here on the puck line in the first period is coming in at +140. Stamkos for the anytime goal at +145, and that goal in the first 5 minutes is +146. The over 6.5. Let's look at the alt totals, what they're giving us on FanDuel for alt totals, because I do think you can look at alt totals in this one. Alt total goals over 7.5. It's +158 on FanDuel. 5-4 style game. I don't see the Lightning all of a sudden locking down on the defensive side. I do see those goals really coming in this one. I expect at least 5 out of the Lightning. So if we can get 2, we need 3 out of the Sens, which they have been good for in a lot of these games. They're going to be frustrated off that loss to the Blackhawks as well. So I do think we see those goals. And Stamkos, well, he's on that top line with Braden Point and Kucherov. So taking him for the anytime goal +145 has so much value. Late to the show. Hey, Doug. It's good to see you here. Yeah, I like Tampa to be able to bounce back as well. Carolina is playing so strong. That is for sure. So that's where I'm going with these games today, you guys. Let's just look at live lines, see if we have any changes in those games. Just let me get back there. We have a 5.5 now on the total for the Anaheim Ducks and the Buffalo Sabres. The over 5.5, though, it's juicy at -140. If you don't have a bet in that one, I would look at the over 5.5 at -140. We've got a 1-1 game here with 15 minutes left in the second period. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the St. Louis Blues, we are still not seeing that scoring coming in. 0-0 with 5 minutes left in that first period. Now, that live total is 5.5 +138 to the over. I would go over before I would go under in this game because I do think both of these teams have the ability to score, and I think once those floodgates get opened up. Now, I just want to have a quick look here on this game to see how many shots on goal are coming in this one. This is really interesting. Take the over 5.5 right now. We're seeing both of these defenses lock down so solid. In the first period, we only saw 3 shots on net for the Toronto Maple Leafs and 5 shots on net for the St. Louis Blues. So I do think once those shots start coming, that you can see this game go over that total. And I think it's just too low. When we look at who's winning those faceoffs, you guys, the Toronto Maple Leafs are winning 66% of the faceoffs. They're being a little bit more physical. 8 hits for Toronto. We've got the St. Louis Blues with those 5s, and the shots on goal, like I said, low shots in these games. And that really needs to change here. And I do think it will. So the over 5.5 at plus 138. Looking at the Dallas Stars, they've tied it up with the Boston Bruins. Not good for me with my under 5.5. When you're looking, if you grab the Dallas Stars plus the 230 when they were down that goal, the Boston Bruins are now minus 154 as this game is tied up. It's plus 120 here for the Dallas Stars. I do think, just because of how Boston has dominated here, that Boston probably does have that bounce back game, but I don't like that puck line. When we look at how physical both of these teams have been out there, it's not really that physical. So we got 8 minutes left in the first period. Both teams sitting here with 2 or 3 hits, 3 hits for the Boston Bruins. Power plays, neither team has had that power play opportunity, and both teams have had the shots on goal coming in, with Dallas with 7 and Boston with 5. So that's where we're sitting with that game. I do think still the under is in play. The under 6.5 is coming in at plus 132. I just think both of these defenses have to lock down. And when we look at those shots on goal, they're still giving them up, but we've got good, solid goaltending in that. So you guys, all the best in all of your bets. Let's make some freaking money out there on the ice. It's a good day to do so. You guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Normal time for Pocket tomorrow. We've got another huge slate. Bye, guys.